Hi guys, today I'm going to be reviewing the news from the world of boxing over the last week. So first we've got Caleb Plant, who's a former 168-pound super middleweight world title holder. Says that he wants to fight Jamal Charlo. I said in a previous video that I think that should be the fight that Jamal Charlo pushes for next. I feel like that'd be a big fight. I feel like that's potentially the best fight Charlo could get at the moment, or should get. I don't think that he's worthy of getting the Canelo fight at the moment, based off his win. Or the only fight he's had in the last 2.5 years is that Jose Benavidez Jr. win, which wasn't a stoppage, wasn't a standout victory. Then other than that, he hasn't fought in the last 2.5 years, like I said. There's rumours of him fighting Canelo. I don't think he deserves it. I feel like Benavidez deserves that fight. But yeah, I think Caleb Plant is the best fight that Charlo should get and should hope for, because there's rumours of... So if Mungia, there's rumours of Canelo and Mungia having a fight, or potentially Canelo and Dimitri Bivol having a fight. If either one of those two fights materialise, I'd say Charlo or Benavidez, David Benavidez, the one who beat Demetrius Andrade the other week, has said that he wants to fight Charlo, so Canelo can't fight Charlo, because if he wins, that fight isn't a big fight if he's just lost to Benavidez, and it makes sense for him to fight Benavidez. I like Benavidez's attitude there. I hope Benavidez does get the fight. In that case, Charlo should be fighting Caleb Plant. I think that's the next best fight. And after Caleb Plant smacks Jamal Charlo, it makes sense. I feel like there'd be a lot of hype. That could potentially be a pay-per-view, I'd say. If PBC are apparently going to go to Amazon, like I spoke about last week. If that does happen, if they potentially do pay-per-views, that could be a pay-per-view fight. I don't know how Amazon are going to broadcast the not Showtime events, the PBC events, sorry. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So I think Caleb Plant should fight Jamal Charlo. I think that'd be a good fight. Next, we've got Regis Prograis saying that he would be open to a Matthias fight after fighting Devin Haney, assuming that Prograis beats Devin Haney, obviously. I'm going to be previewing that fight on Friday, I think, the Regis Prograis Devin Haney fight. Interesting to see Regis Prograis say that. I feel like there's a bit of a different mindset between Prograis and Haney, because they're both speaking about their next fight, which I don't think they should really do. I think they should focus on each other. But Regis Prograis saying he wants Subriel Matias, who isn't a big name, and that would be a unification fight, whereas Haney's saying how he wants to move up in weight to fight Keith Thurman, who's a big name, but hasn't fought since last January or February, I think. So February 2022. Haney's also commented on Subriel Matias and said that Matias isn't a big name, so he probably wouldn't fight him. Again, it just depends on what the result is this week. I'd like to see Prograis versus Matias. I think that'd be a really good fight if Prograis does beat Haney, or even if Prograis doesn't beat Haney, if he wins 2 fights, stays at 140 pounds, and then could work his way up to a title and fight Matias. I think that'd be a good fight. Both good power punchers. Be a good fight. There's comments from Deontay Wilder about Anthony Joshua, or Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, really, He's basically said Eddie Hearn doesn't feel comfortable with Anthony Joshua fighting him because he doesn't have full confidence in him, and he's made comments about how he's the only draw that Matchroom have now. I feel like there's part of that that's true, because I feel like Eddie Hearn wants the Deontay Wilder fight to be for as much money as possible, because potentially he doesn't feel like he's going to win the fight. It's a risky fight. He could win it, he might lose it. This 50-50 fight, maybe 60-40 either way. Yeah, I think that's part of that's true. He is definitely the biggest draw Matchroom have. Trying to think of draws that Matchroom have. Just go through the weight divisions quickly. There's Bivol, who's not a really big money fighter. They don't have Canelo anymore. It's just struggling to find out who they actually have, to be fair. Pacheco in the future, but definitely not now. Conor Ben in the future, if he can sort out all his drug test stuff, which we're going to speak about in a minute. Who else do they really have? There's Devin Haney, potentially, Regis Prograis. Yeah, they don't really have many big names at the moment. So I think he is talking the truth about that part of it. I think Eddie Hearn definitely wants the most money for Anthony Joshua that the fight can make, which is why I think potentially he's talking about going to fight Otto Wallin in December and then fighting Filip Hrgović for the IBF title, assuming the IBF title gets vacated if Usyk and Fury do fight on the 17th of February. If Joshua beats Wallin, he'll be the number 2 ranked contender for the IBF belt, and Hrgović will be number 1. So if it's vacated, it'll just be those two. And I feel like that would, having a title involved in the fight, potentially might bring a bit more money. I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what happens, really. Yeah, hopefully that fight will be made at some point next year. It needs to happen next year, otherwise they'll both miss their peak years. I already think Wilder's potentially past his peak, so the fight's not as interesting as it was before when it was undisputed in like 2018, 2019. Yeah, but the fight definitely needs to happen next year, I'd say. Tim Bradley has said Ryan Garcia gets destroyed by the other 140-pound the elite 140-pound boxers. It'd be interesting to see how he actually gets on against an actual 140-pounder, because I don't think he's actually fought anyone who's a natural 140-pound fighter. He's fought Duarte at 140 pounds last weekend. He's fought Gervonta Davis at like 136 pound. He's fought Javier Fortuna, who was a world champion, I believe, in the 130 pound division. So he's brought people up to 140 pounds. I'd like to see him fight someone at 140 pounds. Yeah, I don't think he gets battered. I see Garcia as sort of a Deontay Wilder sort of, not necessarily with his power, because I don't think he's got the same amount of power as Deontay Wilder, like pound for pound sort of power. But I think like they both got their flaws in their boxing technique. Obviously, Ryan Garcia can prove me wrong, because he is still young, and I think he does have natural boxing ability, but he just needs to apply himself more in training camp. At the moment, I would say Ryan Garcia has flaws where he like turns his back like he did against Duarte, where his chin's still up in the air when he throws that left hook and his right hand's down. So he still has flaws, but I feel like with that left hook, he has a lot of power, a lot of speed. So although he could get beaten by the top 140 pounders, I think he could also beat the top 140 pounders, not probably by outboxing them, but probably by landing a good combination, lands a good left hook, which is able to knock him out because it's a powerful left hook. Yeah, so Ryan Garcia is going to be a very entertaining fighter in the future years, and anything could happen in his fights. Really, he could win, he could lose, he could get knocked out, he could knock out. Yeah, he's going to have an interesting career, I think, Ryan Garcia. He's definitely going to lose some, he's definitely going to win some. But most importantly, he'll be involved in a lot of big money fights because he's a big name, I think. Just trying to find some more news. There's Ryan Garcia saying he wants Rolly Romero next. I think we spoke about that on the review of Ryan Garcia's performance. Rolly Romero, that is. I think Ryan Garcia can definitely win his first world title against Rolly Romero. I think that would be a big fight just because Rolly Romero talks a lot, not because he's an overly great boxer. I feel like anyone in the top 20 probably in the division would beat him, or at least give him a good fight. I just don't rate Romero highly at all. Yeah, he's not good technically. He builds himself on having a lot of power. I don't think he has a lot of power. He couldn't knock out his last opponent properly. Barroso, that was, who's fighting O'Hara Davis in January now. That fight's been rescheduled. He's not, because that was a very controversial stoppage when Rolly Romero fought Barroso. And Barroso's in his 40s, I think, now. If he's an elite champion, he should be knocking out a 40-year-old who's definitely got his best years behind him. On to the next bit of news. Sean Porter saying he expects Canelo versus Jamal Charlo in May. I've spoken about that. I don't think Charlo's worthy of that just yet. Rolly Romero says the fight against Ryan Garcia will be one of the biggest fights of the year next year. So I think that fight's probably going to happen. Jaime Mungia has been announced to fight John Ryder, which potentially I'd say means he's not going to be fighting. He's probably not going to be fighting against Canelo in May. I doubt that. Which makes me think Canelo will either be fighting Benavidez, unfortunately, maybe Charlo, or Bivol. So that basically takes Mungia out of it, I'd say, because I don't think he'd have a 4-month turnaround after the hardest fight that he's going to have of his career against John Ryder, I'd say. I'd say John Ryder's probably the best opponent he's ever faced. So I think that narrows it down for Canelo a bit. And I think between those four, so Canelo, Charlo, Benavidez and Bivol, I think if Canelo fights Charlo, Benavidez should fight Bivol. If Canelo fights Bivol, Benavidez should fight Charlo. If Canelo fights Benavidez, I don't think Charlo and Bivol will fight, but it would be interesting to see what happens for the next. I'd rather see Bivol fight in the undisputed fight against Beterbiev. I think that'd be that's one of the fights I want to see most in the year or next year. And I'm going to be making a video around New Year's time-ish about top 10 fights I want to see next year for boxing and UFC. So top 10 fights I want to see, who's in my top 10 pound for pound, and my order of the top 10 pound for pound. I'm going to make a video on that. I'm going to make a lot of videos which isn't necessarily news and stuff, I'm going to say, which I think would be good for the channel. Let me know what you guys want me to make videos on, I guess, and I'll give my opinion on certain topics. And but anyway, on to the Jaime Mungia John Ryder fight. I think that's a good fight for Mungia. He needs to step up a bit now. He needs to be fighting at that world level more consistently. I think either in his last fight or the fight before, he fought Derevianchenko. Apparently that was a really close fight. I think Mungia got the stoppage in the last round, I think, or he got knocked down, which got him the fight on points. Mungia's one of those golden boy fighters like Zurdo Ramirez who's got a really padded record. He's won a world title at 154 pounds. He's not really fought anyone at 160 or 168 pounds now. When he moved up to 160 pounds, he is the mandatory for the WBO title, which was against Andrade. He didn't want to fight Andrade, and then he was also the mandatory for the fight against Janabek and Mkanuli. Both of those I think would have been good fights and fights that Mungia needed, but he kept on chasing the Golovkin fight and easy fights that he got paid for. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be a big fight for him. I assume on a Golden Boy card. I'm interested to see how good Mungia actually is. I'll definitely be watching that fight, even if it's the day after. I'll definitely be watching and giving my opinion on that fight. Ryan Garcia says that he will beat Shakur Stevenson. I personally don't see that, to be honest with you. I can't. Shakur Stevenson's too good defensively. Shakur Stevenson's too good at his distance management. I could see it being a bit like Ryan Garcia against Gervonta Davis, but I just think Stevenson would... I can't see Stevenson knocking him out, but I just don't think the fight will happen in general, because Ryan Garcia is saying it would only be at 140 pounds, but Stevenson's only just moved up to 135 pounds, and he's got his own business to take care of with potential unifications. I just don't think that fight will happen anytime soon, until Stevenson eventually moves up to 140 pounds anyway. Which I think will probably happen in a couple of years. Just having a look for some more news a minute, guys, sorry. Robert Garcia saying he doesn't want Benavidez to fight Jamal Charlo, says he should fight Morel, Bivol or Beterbiev. I think I've covered that enough this video on who I think they should all fight. A lot of this is Ryan Garcia stuff from last week, I think. I think it's quite interesting to see Gervonta Davis. I don't know if I spoke about this last week on the news review. Obviously, Devin Haney vacated all of his £135 titles, but Gervonta Davis doesn't want to be elevated to the WBA full lightweight champion. He's got a regular belt at the moment, which I don't personally class as a world title. I think... So there's two ways of looking at this. He could either want to win the world title properly in a fight against, I think Isaac Cruz is the WBA number one contender, I think. So Isaac Cruz versus Gervonta Davis in a rematch. Or he's, with his WBA title, he's not, or regular title anyway, sorry, he's not getting mandatories, so he's not getting told who to fight, which I think he's classed as, by people on Showtime and PBC, they build him as a WBA, or they build him as a 3-weight world champion. He's actually only a 1-weight world champion in the 130 pound division. He doesn't hold a title at 135 pounds. He doesn't hold a title at 140 pounds. They're both WBA regular titles. I think Gervonta Davis has been very well managed. He's now a pay-per-view star. He's not had the fights that he should have to build his legacy. He's not had legacy fights. His biggest fight was Ryan Garcia, and Ryan Garcia is a flawed fighter. He drained Ryan Garcia down. I can't see him fighting any of the top guys. And also, if he gets elevated to that WBA title, that would basically mean the WBA full title anyway. That basically mean he's also saying he's not a WBA 140-pound champion, so he's not a 3-weight world champion. So it sort of takes his brand, something away from his brand, I'd say. Yeah, I think Gervonta Davis seriously needs to step up his level of competition. It's not good enough. He hasn't fought since April. I know a lot of stuff's happened with like court cases and stuff this year, but he still needs to sort everything out and fight a better level of competition. And then one last thing which I said I'd speak about was the Conor Benn situation. Last week I spoke about how Conor Benn was going to fight Chris Eubank Jr. potentially in February, I think, in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That looks like that's not going to happen now because the British Boxing Board of Control have basically said he can't fight until stuff's cleared up with his drug test, which is really disappointing because it's been a year and a half now by the time that fight could have happened. What was it, last October, so a year and 2 months. By the time that fight could have happened, it would be nearly a year and a half. And the only fight he's had was against Orozco, and that wasn't a big fight. I did rate Conor Benn before all of this, and I did think potentially he could be a world champion. But if he's not going to be allowed to fight in the UK, that Chris Eubank fight isn't going to be as big. I think he should potentially focus on the welterweight division, because I think if he wins a world title, he can be involved in big fights. The Chris Eubank fight is the biggest fight that he could possibly have, but I think they seriously need to sort this whole drug stuff out quickly, because otherwise his career is going to fly by and he's not going to get the fights that he could get, and he's not going to reach his potential. So thanks guys for listening. Give me some ideas on potential videos you guys would like. Please give a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks guys.